Benito Andrea Mussolini was a strong power who led Italy from 1922 through 1943. Mussolini was born in a mid-sized Italian village named Predoppio, where his father worked as a blacksmith and his mother as a teacher. He loved his father and proved to be a huge influence on his life when Mussolini followed his steps to become a socialist. As a child, Mussolini was a troublemaker. He was forbidden from his mother's church by 8 and was expelled from school by 9 for stabbing another student. Although he had bad actions, he was a bright student. He fled to Switzerland to avoid military service, but was deported shortly after being arrested for vagrancy.
At a time when Mussolini's mother fell ill, he decided to join a socialist newspaper. During November 1914, he decided to create his own newspaper, the Il Popolo d'Italia. He then had to go into military service. However, he was wounded in 1917 and returned home. Mussolini continued editing his newspaper and later, in 1921, entered Parliament. In October of 1922, King Vittorio Emanuele III asked Benito to create a new government for Italy and become prime minister. He created the National Fascist Party and was only 39 years old. It was a totalitarian system of government with more than 250,000 followers. Many fascists were in parliament, which allowed for a grand-scale support for Mussolini. This altered elections and which gave him the powers of a dictator.
Mussolini won over the affection of his people very quickly, but all that would soon change. On June 10, 1940, Mussolini declared war on France and Britain, joining the Axis side of war. They joined with the Germans in the Battle of France, where after 11 days, France surrendered. Along with this, Mussolini was leading the East African campaign. In the campaign, Mussolini's Italian East Africa would attack the British in Sudan, Kenya, and British Somaliland. The fighting broke out when the Italians bombed the Rhodesian air base at Wajar in Kenya. In 1941, the Italians surrendered. On August 3, 1940, Mussolini captured British Somaliland. After a month later, General Rodolfo Granzani commanded the Italian 10th Army. They went from Libya to Egypt to where British forces were located. This was known as the Western Desert Campaign. They were advancing well but had to stop at Sadar Barania for its lack of supplies. In October, Mussolini attacked Greece. He ended up losing 1/3 of Albania. Soon Mussolini started having more and more losses in war, leading to less and less followers. People then started turning against him.
Eventually, after failed attempts of war on the US and the Soviet Union, the Italian people turned against Mussolini. King Vittorio Emanuele II forced Mussolini to come to his palace and was told that he no longer possessed power. Unfortunately for Mussolini, he was saved by the Nazi Germans and proceeded to execute those who had turned against him, including his own son-in-law. Finally, his mistress and him were captured by Italian partisans on April 27, 1945, and were executed 2 days later. The bodies were hung by their feet in Milan, evidence of their deaths.